Hey, everybody. I am hosting today's episode of MFSN's Fantasy Baseball Strategy Show because our fearless leader, Dr. Dan, is unavailable. But you get me, Kasey Scheinvold, and of course, the most entertaining and brilliant man in fantasy baseball, Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody. Ross the Boss here, coming live from La La Land, Lipstick City, Los Angeles, California. And we're into baseball. We'll talk strategy. We'll talk dropping people. We'll talk injuries. We'll talk anything you want. If you like us, press the like button. If you have questions, just type it up and we'll answer them. I'm here for you guys. Just whatever you say, will answer any question dealing with fantasy baseball. No hockey, no basketball.
To Ross's credit, though, he knows more about hockey than almost anybody I've met.
Yeah,
so
but I don't want to.
Well.
Again, we're in the middle of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
You got the NBA
big game tonight in Madison Square Garden with the Rangers and the Florida Panthers. It's going to be unbelievable. That series will go 7 games for sure. But we're here to talk baseball, Kasey.
Yeah, we are. And we're almost to June. You know, Memorial Day was earlier this week. That's when you kind of set as your now I'm ready to trade deadline for you. Like that's when you start thinking about it.
It's not, Kasey, let me correct you. Not trading. I was dropping players that are marquee names to pick up players that are playing better because these are redraft leagues. And you know what? You got 8 weeks left, I would say, until you start to play. 8 weeks, 10 weeks. But you got to start winning games, and you can't rely on these players that are just dragging your team down. I mean, you gotta move, baby. You gotta move. You gotta make the moves to win.
Yes, you do. You have to be active all year long. The one thing that separates fantasy baseball from all the other sports is the amount of games, the length of the season. It is a grind, and you have to stay on top of your team. You take a couple weeks off, you forget, you get busy, and all of a sudden you're playing catch up, especially in a season-long rotisserie league. In a head-to-head league, if you lose a week here and there because of it, it's not as bad. But oh my gosh, yeah, it is a grind. And you're right. We have seen some major names, either go down because of injury, and now we've seen some major names who are just continuing to struggle. Obviously, Acuna, we talked about him on Tuesday, lost for the season again. I think Austin Riley's coming back though, so that'll help.
Well, Austin Riley played this week. He's back. He played. Strider for the Atlanta's out. But let me tell you something about Atlanta. They won the World Series without Acuna a few years ago, and they got Soler filled in, and they also got Adam Duvall to fill in. So their front office, I feel, is the best in baseball. I think they're that good. So I'm not counting Atlanta out, even though they lost their 2 big studs. Doesn't matter. They find a way to win.
I'm not counting them out completely, but it doesn't help that Matt Olson is also struggling. Austin Riley is also struggling. Yeah. Ozzie Albies has been in and out of the lineup.
Michael Harris is struggling.
It's not just the injury that's doing it Atlanta.
No, I agree.
Let's talk about those struggling players because, like I said, we're over 50. We're 55, between 55 and 60 games into the season for most of these players. So we're about a third of the way through, which is amazing to think that by June 1st, you're a third of the way through the season. But it's true. And so, but there are some players who we all spent a lot of draft capital on or traded for if it's a keeper league or whatever, that just aren't producing. And so I guess, when do you consider dropping a Randy Arozarena or a Corbin Carroll, our cover boy, who are really just playing poorly?
Well, you can't. Anybody you draft in the first round, you can't drop. Obviously, you can't trade if they're struggling. Their value's down. So you're stuck. I mean, as much as I want to say I love Julio Rodriguez, I have him in a bunch of leagues. He's struggling. Yeah. I would love to trade him, but I can't get what he's worth trading him in these dynasty leagues. The guy is 25 years old. He's a phenom. He's great. But again, guys like Cedric Mullins, there's a bunch of guys that I can drop in these redraft leagues that I feel comfortable with and picking up. I don't know who's available in your league, but there's guys that are really hitting the ball well. and doing a lot better than some of these guys that you have starting, and they're bringing your team down. If the reason you're in 9th or 10th place isn't because you're a bad manager, it's because your players are bad, and you just gotta chalk it up, and you just gotta chalk it up sometimes. And it's a life lesson, you know. Sometimes you just gotta just chalk it. And I know you drafted these guys and you felt good beginning of the season, but you know, just drop the guy and pick up somebody better. I mean, that's my advice. I mean, it's, you know, and that's why we're here. If you have questions, we'll answer them.
So we got Pete the pharmacist, we got Christopher Atwater, and we got Uncle Ted here. They're all chatting to each other on the chat. I know, and Pistol Pete, Uncle Ted, I'm putting you on the spot here because I know you drafted him early in our Dynasty League and you've been pounding the drum on him. But I was looking at his numbers, you know, on the season. What is he batting? 194. In the past 30 days, you're saying he's heating up. In the past 30 days, he's batting, let's see, where is it? Oh, that went too far. Past 30 days, he's batting 198. So it's not like it's been that better.
It's getting hot in Arizona, folks, but he's not eating up so quick.
The past 2 weeks, he's only batting 200 with no home runs.
Yeah,
so I don't know. I don't know if I can buy he's heating up, but yeah, Corbin Carroll is somebody who can heat up quick, obviously, but he's not somebody you can trust. He's obviously not somebody you're going to drop. But is he somebody is that somebody, Ross, you would target as a buy low candidate?
Dynasty League, yes. Dynasty League, absolutely. He's a young guy. He's in his early 20s, I believe. And he is a monster year last year, stolen bases, batting average, home runs, you name it, he does it. But this year, he's just having an off year. I mean, I wish I could have an excuse. He's hurt or something. There's no excuse. It's just he's having a bad first half of the season. Yeah. Let's get to the All-Star break. Maybe he'll pick it up. But right now, you just got to deal with it. You know, like I'm dealing with a few players too. It's the same thing. Olsen, Rodriguez of the Mariners. I mean, all these guys are eventually going to start hitting because, as we know, fantasy baseball is all about math. And Kasey, you took math in high school, and you got A's in high school. I saw your transcript. I have it. I have the transcript right here, folks. And Kasey, when it comes to algebra and math, Kasey is really bright, and that helps him in baseball. And that's what you have to go with is stats. I mean, as much stats. I mean, baseball is the whole game. It's not basketball doesn't have it as much, and neither is football.
Yeah. So, like, I'll use somebody like Francisco Lindor as an example, right?
Yep.
His season so far, as everybody knows, has been pretty atrocious. Let's see, what is it this season?
He hurt himself, but he's playing. But he hurt his index finger the other night.
241 in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, but remember last year the same thing happened, and I said it on our fantasy pre-shows. I said Lindor's not going to be doing that well until the summer. I knew it.
And I'm gonna be honest. I mean, and if you look, what I like to look at is if you look at his April and May from the last 3 years, it was a 194 average in April and May in 2021, a 260 average in 2022, and a 223 average in 2023. Right. So this is a guy who always struggles out the gate, and it's something that you have to be aware of. I talked about it in the past. Two guys who I used to love to trade for at the end of May were Edwin Encarnacion and the parrot on his shoulder when he'd run the home runs, and Victor Martinez. These were two guys who historically came out of the gates terribly, and then their owners would give them up for pennies on the dollar, and then they'd bat 320, 310, 330 the rest of the season. And so those are some things that are important to look at. You also want to look at contact rates. You want to see if they're chasing more, if they're barreling the ball more. They might be getting unlucky. Look at their batting average on balls in play or BABIP. Those are the numbers that kind of predict whether it's they're just over the hill or lost it. Like you look at somebody like Jose Abreu in Houston. He just looks like he might.
They just brought him back up. They just brought him back to the majors, and he's sitting not 0-0. He's sitting like 100. He's sitting like 100. I mean, really quick, Kasey. Look at somebody. I have a question for you: is do you drop them or just ride with them? And I say drop them. Is Randy Arozarena Rays?
Arozarena, yeah. I mean.
Stats. I mean, how
his numbers on the season? He's batting 161, 8 home runs, 7 stolen bases. I don't know if I could drop him. I just because of the power speed, the 5 category potential there. I would, as long as I have a long enough bench.
mean,
But if I have a short bench, I don't have a choice. If you only have 2 or 3 bench spots,
yeah,
it,
you're right.
it becomes difficult. But if it's somebody you drafted in the first 2 rounds, and he's usually right around 25 to 30 in your player rankings, that he's your number 1 outfielder, right? Like you could have gotten lucky, and drafted, I don't know, Jurickson Profar as your 5th outfielder, and Profar is right now the best hitter on San Diego, and so that can cover that loss. But it's just, man, it's tough to cut those guys. I tend to be more risk averse when it comes to players who, when you look at their stats for more than 2 or 3 years, they always are there at the end of the season. And so that's much more difficult. Corbin Carroll worries me more because he's a rookie. There's only 1 year. Now, his 1 year was phenomenal, and we know the talent is there. He was a top-ranked prospect for a reason. But there's not that track record of figuring it out. Like Manny Machado, I still trust to be productive at the end of the season, even though he's been a letdown so far this year. It's
well, Manny Machado. Let's go back to Manny Machado. I mean, he's been showing his age lately, and he's not consistent. He's not the player he used to be, and he's look at his stats. I mean, he's just not. Yeah. I don't see him bringing it like the second half. I just think he got old.
He turns 32 this year.
He's not even that old, but he's just been in the league for so long.
Oh yeah. But you're right. It hasn't been his best year. He hasn't last year, 30 home runs, 91 RBIs. Yeah,
I know. I mean, this year,
37, 32, and 102 the year before. So, I mean, no, he's not going to hit for the average you saw back in 2020 and before, but he's going to hit 260 at the end of the year. He's probably going to get close to 30 home runs and 100 RBIs. I just believe it's still there. But you're right. He came up incredibly young, so we think of him as much older than he is because he has a lot of innings on those legs, and he's in the field. I don't know if they're finding DH spots for him, but they should probably DH him a bit just to kind of preserve him.
Let's say you were drafting a team, redraft league this year, Kasey Scheinfeld. Who would be your number 1 pick right now? In
right now?
League, fantasy baseball. Yeah, I'll tell you mine.
My number one pick right now.
I'm telling you
Bobby
mine.
Witt Jr.
I'll tell you first.
For me, it's Bobby Witt.
Okay, for me, it's Gunnar Henderson.
Yep, he would be my number 2. And the only reason I would put Shohei up there, but he's utility only. Kyle Tucker's another one I would consider, but the batting average for
I hate Houston.
Witt,
So Houston, I despise.
By the way,
I love when they lose. I love it.
I want to point something out. Ellie De La Cruz is batting .216 for the month of May. I'm just saying.
Okay.
You've been saying that my bust call on him was the worst thing ever.
Okay, how many stolen bases? I forgot.
Oh, I'm not saying the peripherals. He's got 31. Only 9. Only 9. What?
Oh.
Not double digits yet.
He's the most exciting player in baseball.
Oh yeah. I'm not denying that.
He can outrace you around the bases. I know you're fast, Kasey, but you're not going to beat either Doug Cruz or Billy Hamilton. You're not going to beat either of those guys. Don't get any fantasies in your head. So let's talk baseball. Doug Cruz, for sure, a first rounder in any fantasy league if the draft was today.
Well, Chris Atwater agrees with you. He says his number 1 pick would be Ellie De La Cruz.
It's again, I think you can't go wrong with any of those people. If the MVP voting was today, Bobby Witt would be probably 2nd or 3rd right now in the American League.
Behind Gunnar Henderson, you think?
You said it.
Well, let's see. Bobby Witt Jr. is batting .307, 49 runs, 9 home runs, 37 RBI, 16 stolen bases. Gunnar Henderson is batting only .258, has 18 home runs, so twice the home runs, but half the stolen bases at 7. 7 fewer runs scored and only 4 more RBIs. So if you look at in fantasy rankings so far this year, Gunnar Henderson is ranked 6th. Bobby Witt is ranked 3rd. So Jose
Yeah.
Ramirez is actually ranked second because of his 56 RBIs,
Jose on a
16 home
tear.
runs, 8 stolen bases.
Another
He's
guy
one of
that
those
can't keep his
guys.
mouth shut. Yeah.
He's one of those guys who just can't get the recognition he deserves.
No, it
The
drives me
guy has
nuts
been
too.
maybe the best third baseman in baseball, at least from a fantasy perspective, for the past 8 years, 7 years, and nobody thinks of him, mentions him because he plays in Cleveland.
No, he's a force to be reckoned with. I like Jose Ramirez. I like Cleveland. I think their team. I like Fry, a catcher. I like their team. I like what they're doing in Cleveland right now, and also like what Kansas City's doing too. I think they're a youthful team, and they're on their way up too. And Minnesota won today too. So we got a lot of young, good teams in that Central, which you made fun of beginning of the year. Now you have to do another apology note to the AL Central saying, you know, guys, I thought you were a really bad division, but you know what? You're not as bad as I thought. Just, you know, you got Eli De Cruz's a little sorry note, and the AL Central teams too. Just write it up.
I'll just write a big, long apology for everybody.
Okay, thank you. That's all I ask.
That's a, hey, I know when I'm wrong. I know
You're
when
never
I'm wrong.
wrong. I'm teasing you.
But do you know who has the best rotation statistically in baseball right now?
Hold on. Good question. Is it Glavine, Maddox, and Smoltz?
Of all time, that was one of the best.
Okay. They don't pitch anymore. I forgot. I would say the New York Yankees. I would say the New York Yankees. I mean,
isn't that crazy? Without Garrett Cole, like everybody was like, "How are they going to survive?"
They are pitching like world champions, and that team is just winning. Will they keep doing it throughout the year?
I don't know.
No, he's a big Red Sox freak, so he'll say no because he hates the Yankees. But I say that they'll keep it up at least for a few more months, and then you got Cole back in June, so that starting like rotation looks great. I mean, I
know. The interesting thing is, you know, they're going to have a deep rotation. So when Cole comes back, and if they have to limit the innings of some of these guys, they're going to be able to do it as long as Garrett Cole stays healthy, and then you have your horse going into the playoffs. So it's a good time to be a Yankee fan right now. Second best record in baseball behind only the Phillies. So
I mean, the Phillies are that team. If they stay healthy, I think they can win their division. And I also feel that they'll be a force to be reckoned with in the National League for the pennant. I think with their starting staff, they can contend against the Dodgers any day. Kasey Scheinfeld. Everybody said, "Oh, the Dodgers, they're going to win the World Series." I'm not sold on the Dodgers. They lost. They were swept by the Cincinnati Reds recently last week. You know, how good are they if they get swept by a mediocre team like the Reds? And I'm a Red fan.
So question for you. One of your favorites in the minors was recalled today to start in center field for the Chicago Cubs, Pete Crow Armstrong. What are your thoughts on him?
He's hitting, he has like 7 stolen bases. I think he's hitting 230 something. You know, I saw him play. He played high school right down the street, and his mom's an actress. She starred in a baseball movie called what was it called? Tony Todd was in it. Is
that The Rookie, or is that Angels in the Outfield, or is that
I forgot what it's called. It doesn't matter. But he has a lot of baseball in his blood. I like the kid. I just think they got to keep him consistently in just to make him a good player. And when they play with the player, little big league, thanks. But he actually showed a lot of promise, and I hope to keep him up. I love the kid. I think he's the real deal.
He's certainly athletic. I mean, and he's been hot as fire in Iowa for the past 10 games or whatever it was. He's been hitting the ball well. So hopefully they don't. I hate when teams call up these prospects when they're hot and then just sit them on the bench. So
okay, do you see who's the hottest hitter in baseball right now? 8 games, 8 home runs.
Who's that?
A guy that you made fun of me and you said, "Oh, I can't believe you're picking him as your number 1 shortstop." Well, I did, and now he's heating up. Corey Seager, he's heating up, and you made fun of me. I called Corey and told him what you said. Now he's mad, and now he's hitting.
So I'm not invited to his birthday party anymore.
No, you're not invited to anything. You're banned. But long story short, never give up on Corey Seager. Too good of a hitter. That place is a hitter's ballpark, and he's really good.
He is really good. So what are the things you're looking at now on your roster? What are the tweaks you're making at this point? Are you like, what are the amount of moves you're willing to make in a week?
I made three. I already made one league. I made 4 moves. Another league. I mean, I'm making moves. I mean, people are getting healthy. I got to drop people to add people, but I'm looking at players that I drafted in the middle rounds, maybe even late rounds, that are not producing, and I'll get rid of them. I'll drop them. I'll try to trade them first, but usually people don't want a bad player with bad stats, unless they're crazy. And there's a lot of crazy people out there. So I am looking to improve my team overall. I'm looking for the players that are on teams that score runs. That does not include the Toronto Blue Jays. They don't score runs. They're in this ballpark now, which they move defenses, and it's hurting them offensively. I just read a whole article.
Vladimir Guerrero has heated up. His batting average over the past month is well over 350.
Anything this year. Barshow hasn't. I mean, all these guys haven't done anything this year, but it's the Toronto has not been good. And another team that doesn't like to score that much is Detroit. Even though I like their lineup, but they don't score many runs. You know, I mean, they're really limited when Tampa Bay is horrible scoring. That's another team. If I don't have a Tampa Bay player on my team, I'm happy. If I don't have an Oakland A player on my team, except maybe Rooker, your boy Miller got hit today pretty good. But again, there's teams that just don't score. I mean, and then there's teams like the Dodgers that score a lot of runs. So you got to be what team your player, because some of these teams that are out there aren't scoring, and they're not going to. I mean, another team that's horrible is Colorado. I mean, they play in that ballpark, and Kasey, and I always try to take a couple every year because they would score like 12 and runs, and and it's a hitter's ballpark. This year, they're not doing that. I mean, it's not this. I don't know if the players are bad or what's going on. The water's changed. I don't know, but
even the Mets' own pitcher. Did you see that? Even the Mets' own pitcher said they're the worst team in baseball. Then he got designated, and he got released.
I don't know if you saw the video. He got in an argument with the ump. The ump called the ball. It should have been a strike. Long story short, he threw his glove in the stands, and he's in this guy. He's a nice guy. I've met him in spring training before. He's been on a few teams, and he's a really nice guy. He has a language barrier. I think it was a language barrier. I don't know what, but they released him as soon as he said that. The next minute they said, "Okay, you're out of here. Bye." They got rid of him.
Yeah. Chris Atwater has a question. Who are the big guns you're looking for at the trade deadline who will rock in a different setting? Try to trade for them now, based on speculation.
Well, if Mike Trout can get healthy kind of quickly, I don't know what his timetable is.
It's a long shot for him to make it back, is what it sounded like.
Okay, well, I wish if Trout was traded to like the Phillies, which is the team he wants to go to because he's in New Jersey, and it's right across the river. And I don't think that's happening. But I mean, I would say, I mean, there's so many players that these huge. The problem is these contracts are so big, and a lot of teams just don't want to take it on. But I see the Yankees don't care about money; they have plenty of it. So, and they're in the middle of the playoff hunt. So I'm sure they'll add a hitter. They'll get somebody. I don't know how. I don't know. I think with the older stars, they'll trade. But the younger guys like Carroll and Rodriguez and people like that, I don't see them being gone anywhere. But, I mean, if you look around at the bad teams that have no playoff shot at all, I mean, who do you want on the Marlins? Who do you want on the Angels? Who do you want?
Well, the Angels, I mean, look, as much as I am not a fan of him based on the metrics, Taylor Ward has to be somebody considered. I mean, the cat's doing it again.
Okay, let's say Taylor Ward, but I mean, Arizona's not going to trade early.
Ryan McMahon in Colorado, who qualifies at second and third, two pretty.
That's a Colorado phenomenon. Maybe he just hits well because he plays in Colorado. I don't know.
So if Arizona fails to play well, because right now they're they're near the bottom. I think they're in 4th or 3rd in the division. Does Kettle Marte become available?
I would say, I mean, he's back to hitting 270 again. And
Yeah.
he started the year so hot, and he was like runs, RBIs. He was doing great. He's been in a slump. I don't know what he hit in May. Look it up real quick, but he is not hitting like he did. He's not hitting like he did in April at all. But I would say Arizona, except for Carroll, will trade people. Jock Peterson is hitting well. I mean, he plays about 80% of the games because they rest him when a lefty pitch. But
in the last 30 days, Marte is only batting .210 with 5 home runs.
Yeah. You got to look at those stats. Marte came back to earth. I get it. It's the A's. I like Rooker from the A's. He's been hitting the ball really well lately, and I have him in a couple of fantasy teams. He's not hurting me at all. He's not a bad guy to pick up.
So how's this for a question? Pharmacist Pete says, if Corbin Carroll was dropped in a 12-team league, what percentage of your fab would you bid? If Corbin Carroll's out there on the wire,
This is a redraft league, I assume. This is not
I'd bid 50% of my fab budget pretty easy.
I would bid 50. I would at least bid 50%.
Yeah, I mean, if it's 100, let's say
stuff like that happens every Haley's Comet, you'll see a thing like that happen.
Because otherwise, you don't want it. There's no point in hoarding your fab budget. We talk about this all the time because as later in the season, using your fab budget, you get less return on the investment just because you're not going to get as many games out of them. Corbin Carroll, you can get 100 games out of him right now, and if he figures it out in the second week of June, you could get 80 games of 15 home run, 15 stolen base potential with a ton of runs scored because he's a 30-30 guy. So if Corbin's out there, I'm bidding maybe even more than 50% of my budget because he's somebody I'd be willing to blow my budget on the risk, just the chance, because more often than not, you're looking at streamers, right? You're looking at guys who, if I can use him, well, this
guys that we'll tell you about on the waiver wire on our show on Tuesdays. Those are the guys you're going to be going after, and they're not going to change your team too much. You might get lucky with some of these Kasey Scheinfeld star picks that he has in the minors. You might get lucky, but
I have some pitchers to talk about in the minors.
I can't wait to hear this. But yes, you're Corbin Carroll. At least half your bank you have. I would bid on it. That's the answer, and we both said the same thing. So there you go.
I mean, he's not going to get traded. There's no way in real life they're going to trade him.
He'll be a Diamondbacks hooker unless they just fall apart.
Unless he makes it to, and he makes it to
for like their whole minor league, the whole league contingent they have there in New York, maybe. But I don't see Arizona.
No, there's no way they're giving him up.
Deal that,
but like are Goldschmidt and Arenado ones you would look at because St. Louis.
Oh, those guys, Goldschmidt's for sure gone. I'll tell you that much. On and Arenado, I looked at his stats today, and he's runs. He's hitting good. His average isn't bad. He's hitting well.
No, I mean he's not going to do the 140 RBIs he was putting up in Colorado.
I mean, St. Louis will probably get something for him, so he could be gone. Who's the Yankees baseman?
Third base? Well, DJ LeMahieu, when he comes back, will play third.
Okay, so
Oswaldo Cabrera.
Right, so Arenado can be a Yankee. I get it. That's a good spot for him. You heard from me first. You could quote me on it that Arenado is going to be a Yankee break. Ross the boss. There you go.
Yeah. So those are. I mean, I don't know if Tampa falls out of it, who they would have that would be attractive. Or Rosarena, maybe. Paredes is good.
I guess.
He's versatile. He plays a bunch of positions.
They're hitting so mediocre, Kasey. I like their pitching.
Go ahead.
But I don't think Taj Bradley's going to be traded. I mean, if they trade some of the young studs, I'll be shocked.
Yeah, and they don't really have the one-year wonder veteran types. So I don't know. It's still too early to talk about what big guns we'd be looking for at the trade deadline, I guess is what we're saying at this point. So I told you I was going to tell you some pitchers in the minors who are pitching
I want to hear your pitchers who I should pick up.
And there's no guarantee any of these guys are up anytime soon, but in the next
great.
couple weeks, I'm hoping to see, more and more call ups. You got your big names, James Wood and Junior Caminero. These aren't pitchers but they're both.
When is Junior going to be brought up?
Well, they're both injured now. Caminero is expected to be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So,
he is?
Yeah.
I'm going to drop him. I have a league where I can't put him on injury list. He's just an NA, and there's no NA spot.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to. I guess I'll just drop him.
Yeah, I think if you don't have a minor league spot for him at this point,
it's just sad.
It's a safe drop.
Yeah.
So some pitchers. Yilber Diaz, Yilber, in the Diamondbacks organization, is pitching lights out. 1.84 ERA, 0.72 WHIP over the last 5 starts, over 12 Ks per 9, and he's doing it in a very hitter-friendly environment.
Where's he pitching? What level?
He's pitching at Double-A in Amarillo, Texas, but he's got a triple-digit fastball with hammer curve and a devastating slider. And so 47 innings pitched, 70 strikeouts. So that's somebody who, for a team that's struggling and looking for a spark like the Diamondbacks, I mean, they made it to the World Series last year, so they're not just going to roll over. Another somebody else who you can look at, George Klassen in the Phillies organization. He pitched as a reliever in college, and he has a triple-digit fastball. He's throwing strikes more than he ever has. 30 innings pitched, 47 Ks. I don't know if he's going to come up and start. That's not going to be his thing, but he's building up to a starter's workload. But a worst case scenario, he can come up and give you some good peripherals in the minors, in the bullpen for you. Quinn Matthews of the Cardinals, another guy, 43 innings, 70 Ks, under a 1 WHIP, 4th round of last year's draft. But his mechanics are his fastball has increased. He's thrown
what organization? What team is he on? What organization is he with?
The Cardinals.
When relation to Gary Matthews? No relation to Gary Matthews.
I'm not sure. Now he's lower in the minors. He's only at high A. So I don't know if he'll be up this year. But
and where's he playing? Where's he playing? What minor? I'm just curious. Do you know what city he's playing in?
I don't have it written on my notes.
I love hearing the minor league teams. I used to collect minor league baseball hats. Did you know that about me? I used to collect those hats. I haven't done it in years, but it's always fun to go to a minor league game. I recommend it to anybody who likes baseball.
So their high A is they go from the Peoria Chiefs, the Peoria, Illinois Chiefs.
Can you imagine Illinois? Horrible. Okay, keep going.
All right, I'll give a couple more names. I just love this guy's first name. I don't.
What is it?
Zebby, Zebby, Zebby Matthews.
Another Matthews. So Zebby Matthews
and Quinn Matthews. I don't know if I don't think they're related. Because
Zebby, I love it.
Quinn Matthews has 1 T. Zebby Matthews has 2. He has
Atwater Zebby. Let's call Atwater Zebby for now on. How about that?
He's in Double-A. He's got a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, 6'5". The Twins, 1.59 ERA, over a strikeout per inning, less than a 1 WHIP. And somebody who I know Uncle Ted and I have talked about in the past, Cade Povich of the Orioles. The kid's still dealing 2.35 ERA, 1 WHIP, 71 Ks, 62% strike rate, 12% swinging strike rate, and a 5-pitch arsenal. So just a few names.
5 pitch, Kasey. Wow. And he's Maury's son?
He is not, he might be. He might, I think he's his nephew.
It might be. My Uncle Ted's going to look that up for us right now. Uncle Ted, do your stuff. But
Chris, look at this.
What's Atwater?
Chris Atwater. He said the Montgomery Biscuits are his hometown, right where he lives now, and he's going to get you a hat.
Atwater, you're the man. I love it. I love the Montgomery Biscuits. I love that name. I love that. I hope you've been to a game. You should support your teams. It's always a fun time going to a minor league ball. I've been to many of them, Kasey, around the country, and I recommend anybody who likes baseball just because it's such a relaxed environment. People are having fun. The drinks are cheap.
Yeah,
Alcohol's
we have
cheap.
the Harrisburg Senators where I live. They're the Double-A for the Washington
There's a Reading team too in Pennsylvania
the
too.
Reading Phillies.
I've been to that stadium, Kasey Scheinfeld. The Reading Phillies back in the day. I've been to the stadium. And but yes, anybody else on your list, on your magic list, that I'm going to actually pick up some of these guys?
On my starters list, not not really anybody that I'm banging the drum for that we haven't talked about in the past.
You'll see some of these guys in August, September. You'll see the call ups. You'll see injuries. You'll see some of these kids brought up. I love when they bring these. I mean, Paul Skees. If I had to say the best pitcher in baseball right now, it's Paul Skees. I mean that's my vote. Japanese guy for the Cubs the Japanese guy got destroyed yesterday.
Shoto Imanaga. Yeah, he got lit up. But look, that's his bat.
My contender for the Rookie of the Year and Cy Young until he had that start.
And he still can. You can have one bad start.
I know. Everybody has a bad day in the office, even Atwater. I get it.
Well, he doesn't have bad days. No, he's too steady.
Atwater, he is. He's good. He's at my wedding. But no, that was Dr. Dan's wedding. I get them mixed up. Sorry. But yes, I agree. I feel that Skees will just keep pitching and keep rolling. I mean, Kasey, in all seriousness,
crazy stuff.
Kasey, if he keeps going, let's say he keeps going, pitching like he is, you see a Cy Young this year in his future. This I know
year,
it's a long shot. Just saying this year. So
no,
you
I
don't see it.
Okay, not this year. I do see a Cy Young in his future if he stays healthy.
Do you see him in a Yankee pinstripe uniform in the future?
I do. Probably in 5 years. Pittsburgh is notorious for when somebody gets to the point of prime. Garrett Cole being a perfect example. They trade him or sell him. So yeah, I mean,
when Skees signs with the Yankees, true or false? We try to grow a mustache, just like Skees.
No, I'm not a mustache guy.
Okay, maybe we'll get Dr. Dan to do it.
Dan could shave the beard and just leave the mustache. He could.
It looks like, that'd be funny. But yes, this week and next week is a very important week in fantasy baseball, and I recommend to everybody that's in fantasy baseball should clean up all their players that are not producing, and just start with players that are producing. That's my best recommendation for you.
It's the dog days of summer, so you're going to have it. You gotta. This is the grind part. It's easy to go a few days.
And guys, like somebody even asked, like if somebody drops Corbin Carroll, managers are going to drop some players that they shouldn't be dropping.
Drops. Yeah. All right. Is Tiedemann, Toronto, by the way, starting pitcher, going to be a Strasburg? I think he might mean Chris Sale, not Sales, kind of guy, dominant but oft injured. Well, Tiedemann hasn't even been dominant yet, so it's hard to put him in, but he's been oft injured. He might be one of those guys who you wonder, what if, right? Like, what if they stayed healthy? Kerry Wood is what I would put in that category too. You know, when
I'll put in that category.
What?
Strasburg, who they mentioned, that's another one that was a phenom his first year, and then he hurt himself and never was the same, and he had to retire.
Yeah, there are some players.
But Tiedemann, yes, we talked, Kasey, we talked about him before the season started. Great stuff, great control, but the problem with him is he gets hurt. And
100-mile-per-hour fastball, but he can't throw it because his shoulder doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of upside eventually, hopefully. But right now, it's
somebody I would have my Dynasty League. I'm obviously going to watch him. Any other league,
Dynasty League, I would pick him up. Redraft.
He's not even on my list.
Yeah, don't even pick him.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a lot of players that way. I mean, imagine if Spencer Strider doesn't come back from this. It's his second Tommy John. You know, it's Walker Buehler is on his second Tommy John. Like, these guys, if they don't recover their form, they'll fit in there too. That's the problem, you know, with the focus on spin rate, velocity, and having them pitch thousands of innings starting at 12 years old.
And that's why these guys guaranteed. Some of these guys have guaranteed contracts. Talking about guaranteed contracts, did you see the deal that I know it's not fantasy football yet, but I'm going to mention it anyway.
Marvin Harrison Jr.
No, Waddle. Your guy, do the Waddle for me real quick. This guy just signed a huge deal today. There you go. Signed a huge deal today, Kasey. Miami Dolphins. These receivers are cleaning up. If you parents out there have any kids that want to play football, have them play wide receiver or quarterback. Nothing else. No other position. Especially not running back. He's signed a deal where he's guaranteed. This is guaranteed money. So if he doesn't play another football game in his life,
$76 million guaranteed.
$76 million guaranteed. And he's not in the number one receiver on the team, Kasey Scheinfeld.
Well, Tyreek Hill is not the same anymore. I think he's getting
a top 10 receiver. Yeah, he's a top 5. He's not a type receiver. No. And the reason I brought that up is because some of these baseball players, pitcher-wise, when they try to get guaranteed money, I because you never know when their arm's going to fall off. When you throw a ball 100 miles an hour and you're putting spin, you know how much pressure that puts on your arm and your shoulder.
Oh, I know.
And these guys deserve it. So there you go. If these guys can get guaranteed contracts, God bless them.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the guaranteed money in baseball is much more important. And baseball is mostly guaranteed contracts, aren't they? There might be some incentive-laden ones. But football is the one that
mixes up. I mean, football is usually not guaranteed.
Right.
Football is one of the few sports where you're not guaranteed money, especially if you're not like a star. But if you can be cut any day and they can just say your contract's void.
It counts against the cap. That's all. Right. So
exactly. There you go.
Well, okay. We have 2 minutes left. Quick predictions on tonight's hockey game and tonight's basketball game.
Okay. Tonight's hockey, like the Rangers at home. I feel, even though hockey is not a sport where home is a big deal, I think it's an exception for the Rangers. I feel the Rangers will win 3-1. It's going to be a low-scoring game. And Dallas is playing in Minnesota tonight. I like the home team. I think Dallas will cover. It's 4.5. But I feel it's going to be a close game. But I feel Minnesota, Anthony Edwards game. I feel Minnesota is going to win tonight. I just have a feeling. I don't know why. Who do you like?
I picked Dallas to win it all at the start of the playoffs, so I'm going to stick with Dallas.
Love it.
And my dad's a diehard Rangers fan, so I gotta go with the old man on this one. I still remember 1994 here in Matteau when he scored the winning goal.
Mark Messier, great team. I've watched that. They played Vancouver, I believe, right? Kasey Scheinfeld.
Yes, you are.
I know that series very well. I'm an expert of that 94 series because my son was a little kid. He used to watch the 94 Rangers series against Vancouver on videotape. That's how old I am, on videotape. And so I've watched it probably 100 times, so I can tell you who won each game and what happened and everything else. That's how stupid I am. But yeah, so the hockey this season is great. And as you know,
playoff hockey is one of the most fun things to watch.
It's great. I reckon if you don't like hockey after watching a playoff game, something's wrong with you.
I totally agree. Well, Ross, as always, your insights are invaluable. I look forward to working with you again next week.
We'll be here Tuesday, 1 o'clock. June 1st is Saturday. We'll be here Tuesday at 2 o'clock, at 1 o'clock Pacific, or 4 o'clock Eastern. We'll talk fantasy waiver pickups, waiver wire, and we'll have some really good picks for you. And Kasey will have his minor league wrap up also. It's going to be great.
I'll look for some prospects for everybody to consider.
Well,
everybody, I hope you're having some nice weather where you are and you get to enjoy your weekend. We are out of here and we will see you on